What's happening? Where's Tara at? Tom's so fire, he's got to have a countdown. That's not the reason I have a countdown. We just try to give people some time to see it, so I have to sit here and look like a bigger goober than I usually do, giving you guys a few minutes because I don't want to sit too long. But then people say, "Well, hold on, you guys." There it all came back. Oh, now you guys are going to start. I've been spending. I've had 10,000 emails today probably, and so I understand there's a lot of them, but you guys start blowing up all these fact patterns over here and there. I'm not going to get to all of them, you guys. It's just not going to. So, yeah, Stacy, I know the smiles on the faces. I get it. So let's talk about a few things, okay? You see the caption that Ryan's got there: mass transition to district-wide mask optional policies. That's what I was trying to spend some time reflecting today, because that's how I usually strategize, is I try to take in everything that's going on. And I wasn't sure, I kind of saw yesterday we had some action, and then today it just absolutely blew apart. And I suspect we're going to continue to see that, where we have the ruling from the judge, for her own good reasons, said, for now, I'm not going to certify the class. Okay. But she still issued a very broad ruling taking the governor to task. And she put in her footnotes, that the school districts should conduct themselves accordingly. I'm telling you that in her opinion, these things are void and invalid, and governor's outside his bounds. So but again, her TRO technically, as I've told you guys, it only applied to the children in the case. But I have a list, and I don't think my list is an exhaustive list, you guys. It's 100 to 150 school districts. Quite a few of them not even in this lawsuit, that made the decision to go to district-wide mask optional policies. Okay, listen to that again. Well over 100 plus school districts, mask optional district-wide policies, right? I'm trying to keep from laughing, because the toiletless tyrant's got to be losing his mind. Because remember what I told you guys, he's trying to control the narrative to keep that from happening. Because what's the expression? Once you let the elephant out of the box, or whatever you call it, you got to try to put him back in. It ain't real easy, right? So that's what they were trying to accomplish, and it didn't work. And so these school districts now are getting some courage, you guys, and that's a good thing. So again, it needs to be every school district in the state. We got to take the wins as we get them. But right now, we've got 100 to 150 school districts, also quite a few private schools that I saw too. Saw the Archdiocese in Springfield. I saw the Archdiocese maybe in Rockford. Don't quote me on this. Certainly in Belleville, down where I'm at, all making this choice. A big one that I thought was worth mentioning was the Springfield School District, Springfield 186, right? Right there in our state capital. They're not even part of this TRO because they're in parent case number 2. I'll talk about in a bit. But they went mask optional for their whole district. Guys, that's a big deal. That's a big deal, because these school districts have read the judge's order, and they're feeling a little bit of security. Also, I heard a little bit from Morton today. The Morton School District, them and a few other districts, they put out a press release that said, oh, by the way, we're already in compliance before the judge even issued her executive order. We're not doing anything wrong. And oh, by the way, us and about 3 or 4 other school districts have sued ISB. And regardless of what happens with the restraining order with the judge, we're going to take that fight to ISB. We're not going to cave. And I thought that message is important, and I wanted you guys to understand it. That's all it takes. Take Morton and the few districts that have joined with them. Compound that times 50 or 100. Get these school districts in mass to say, you know what? We're mask optional. We're not going back to mask required. And if we got to go take on the fight with ISB, we'll take it on. You guys can win that fight. If the local school districts are listening, you can win that fight. If you believe that mask optional is the best for your school, leave your inherent authority conversation. Do you have inherent authority or do you not have inherent authority? Set it aside. If you believe that not having masks on your kids is right for your district, then do it. Keep it in place like you've got it now, regardless of it ruling from a judge that says that, these things, because regardless of what happens, that question still exists. You also need to understand this. Whether or not there can be an executive order, whether or not there can be guidance, whether or not there can be any of that stuff, is a separate, independent question of whether or not they can enforce any of it. Okay? Let me give you an example. I need you guys to understand this. I'm going to give you an example that you can understand, leaving the law out of it, right? No disrespect. I just got to make it this simple. In my house, well, not so much anymore because my children are adults, but let's pretend that they're still young, okay? They're not babies anymore. But in our house, Dad was the authority, right? That's just how it was. And I had rules, and I created those rules. And I always told my children, you got to follow the rules. And you know what? Because I was Dad, I was in a position of authority. They saw me as that position of authority. They didn't want to suffer any consequences. I never spanked my children one time in their life. But they didn't know that. They were intimidated a little bit that Dad might whoop my butt, and never had to, because I was able to maintain that relationship with them to where they were like, Dad's the authority. I listened to him. You with me? Now they start getting a little bit wiser, and they say, you know what, Pop? Yeah, I know you got that rule, but what if I don't follow your rule? It's still a rule, but if I don't follow it, what happens to me? And I go, nothing. Will they still maybe follow it? They might, but if they're going, there's no consequences because Dad can't do anything to me, so I'll choose whether to follow the rule on my own if it's best for me, but I'm not going to follow it because I'm intimidated by the authority figure of my father. Do you guys understand that analysis? Now let me use it. Governor Pritzker is in the position of where I was giving my example. He's the one. I'm the authority. I've got the power. You need to listen to me. And these school districts are like the kids going, oh, yeah, we got to listen because he's the authority. And we don't know. He'll punish us if we don't listen to him. Start becoming to understand, school districts, that even though he's got a rule, regardless of our lawsuit that we're in right now, he's got a rule. Can he enforce that rule? I've got a lawsuit right now in Effingham County that says that ISB cannot enforce his rule. He cannot enforce his rule through ISB. So his executive order, regardless of what it might be on a piece of paper, what's the enforcement mechanism? He doesn't have one. He doesn't have one. Try to get an injunction from the court to follow it? He could have tried that. He didn't. He doesn't have an enforcement mechanism, ladies and gentlemen. It's a separate conversation than can he issue an executive order? Can they issue guidance? Let him do that stuff. Judge Griswold said it's illegal. Set that aside. Let him do it. Say, okay, there's your executive order, that piece of paper. Here's your guidance, that piece of paper. Enforce it against me. Show me that there's real consequences if I choose to make my own decisions. Don't threaten me. Show me. And if they can't show you that there's any real consequences, then you've always been able to make your own decision all along, and you've only been intimidated. My 3 school districts that I represent have learned that lesson, and they know that they were being intimidated. They're still mask optional. They've been mask optional all year. They're not going back to putting masks on their kids. All of our school districts that you guys are in right now that are in their mask optional programs right now, they've all changed in the last 2 days. You parents need to make them stay there. Stay there. Because the emperor has no clothes. Does that make sense to you guys? I wanted to explain that. It was extremely important. Whether or not it's on a piece of paper is a separate conversation than whether it can be enforced. Okay? And if your school district says, there's an executive order, there's guidance, ask them, how are they going to enforce that against us? Oh, they can suspend our recognition status and put us on probation, right? You guys have heard this nonsense. Ask them, how many times has that ever happened and something really bad happened to a school district? Never. It's never happened. The Vandalia School District down where I live, they told ISB to pound sand about 2 months ago. You know what's happened so far? Nothing. Nothing. Morton, that I just told you about, what happened to them? Nothing. Please listen to me, you guys. So go to your school districts and say, you know what? Regardless of this court case that's going on with this injunction that's entered saying this is all wrong, let's talk about potential enforcement regardless of that. You'll get them to stumble because, again, there is no enforcement mechanism. JB knows that. I promise you he knows that. He's trying to bluff you. Don't let it happen. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. I'll touch a little bit on the buses. Guys, the bus issue, because a lot of your school districts are saying, oh, okay, no masks in the schools, but you got to wear a mask on the bus. It's a federal order. Federal order. We're not fighting that fight today, right? We've got bigger fish to fry. Put the mask on your child, put it under their chin, because nobody's paying attention anyway. We'll fight the bus thing if we have to. It probably goes away sometime real soon anyway with all these other cases. But the short version is the federal order has no jurisdiction within the state of Illinois, within the state, going outside the state. Federal, I'm not going to give you an education on federal jurisdiction, but federal jurisdiction almost always has to do with some kind of activity that crosses state lines, right? Because within your state is sovereign, and it has to be a federal issue. Well, crossing over to a different state, it's a federal issue. And I told you before, a bus in Bond County or a bus in Kendall County or a bus in Adams County that just gets kids, is that crossing the state lines? No, it's not. But, your school districts are saying, oh, we got this federal order. I'll say the same thing to you. Take the masks off the kids in the bus. You know what's going to happen from the federal government? Nothing. It's a fear-based mongering too. Just like their OSHA rule that got slapped down by the Supreme Court. The federal government is not coming to your school district and going to say, you got to put masks on the kids. Will not happen, I promise you. But again, we'll fight that fight at a later day if we have to. I just got a text message. We're up to 172 school districts right now, ladies and gentlemen. There's only 146 of them in this case. And we're at 170. I mean, 2 or 3. I'm sorry, my eyes are getting old. I haven't had a thing. I've been sitting here drinking soda all day talking to you guys, so I'm a little caffeine buzz. And I started laughing again. The 172 of them, most of them district-wide. What does that say about the fringe minority? I'm sorry. The fringe minority. You guys heard that nonsense for the last 4 days? You heard, the tyrant on TV? Fringe minority, fringe minority. How do you like the fringe minority now? You got 170-some school districts that have said district-wide, for not all of them, but most of them, district-wide, mask optional. That is not a fringe minority, you guys. That is a huge majority. Are saying, you know what? We got a little bit of confidence from this judge that you don't have all this power, Governor. We're going to do what we think's right. If our clients were really the fringe minority, these districts wouldn't be doing that. They wouldn't be doing that. So that is direct information to suggest that they're full of nonsense. And it's just gamesmanship. It's 5th grade level, political propaganda. Fringe minority. No, we're not the fringe minority. There's 172 of them. And growing. So that's that. And there's another thing for you. Positivity rate, number of cases. I had a conversation with some journalists today about this conversation. I said, you know what? The governor likes to get on TV. He likes to get his lawyers and say, we've got the science, we've got the experts, and they say that, masks are necessary not to prevent the spread. And if we don't put the masks on, and if we don't exclude them based upon flimsy to nothing facts, spread's going to go. And I'm sitting there going, let me see the facts in science. Oh, they can't show you that. If you ask them for the facts in science, they point you to the CDC. They don't have any. They do not have any facts in science. They don't have any. They've got these empirical studies that are being done on mice or shrimp or something. And again, doing some very small studies of humans. But there's just as many studies out there that say that they don't work as they do work. But they've got the experts, right? But let me tell you what Tom and you as the people have. You got your own two eyes, you got your own two ears, and you got common sense. And let me ask you this. Do you know of any school district in the state of Illinois or in the nation that's had a mask optional policy, and as a result of that mask optional policy, positivity in that school went through the roof as compared to the community around it? Let me ask you that again. How many districts do you know that had a mask optional policy and its positive cases and number of cases in that school were exponentially higher than the community or the state around it? You know how many I know of? 0. Now, I know of 5 school districts that have been mask optional either all of the year or for several weeks, almost a couple of months. And you know what their positivity did as compared to the rest of the community around them? It was no different. The reason I say this to you is because absent some circumstance that I haven't seen yet, there's going to be a lot of school districts for the next week, appears for next week, be mask optional. Again, unless there's some change that I can't see, we'll talk about that. But as of today, as we sit here right now, we could go all of next week with a mask optional policy in 170 some districts. I want you all to watch, and I want you to pay attention to your school districts. Watch the positivity and the number of cases across our state, and watch what's going on and has been going on in your school districts, and see if it blows through the roof. I was in the casino business. I was a craps dealer and a floor boss for years when I was in college, paid my way through college. So I understand how the betting game goes. I would not bet that positivity at schools is going to go through the roof. I don't think there's a direct causal connection. I'm willing to accept I could be wrong, but I'm not going to be proven wrong by a bunch of facts and science they won't show me, or a bunch of experts that won't give me any of their information to make my own determination. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use my own intuition. And if I see it happening, I promise you, I'll be the first one to come on this channel and say, guys, we got school districts with positivity blowing through the roof. What do we need to do? What do we need the legislature to do? What does we as people need to do? Not what do I think Governor Pritzker needs to do. I will never say that. But I may come to you and say, we got to come up with a solution, guys. Can we work and get something done with the legislature, with something, because it's going through the roof? We need to watch for that, right? We need to watch for that. And let's see what happens, all right? Let me see here. Again, that's what I mainly want to tell you guys. I don't know if Ryan, if I said something I wanted to talk about. Let me see here. Yeah, I know that's a question. Hold on, I got to tilt this down. I had to sit down, guys. I've been up all day. You guys that have school districts that have told you we're not a party to this lawsuit, we're not under this order, we're not anything to do with it, we're keeping all of this in place. And you guys are going, well, the judges said it's all illegal. They're going, yeah, we're keeping it in place. How many? You guys are, a lot of you are there, right? Those school districts are probably hedging on hoping that the appellate court overturns the trial court. They could be thinking that, right? So, they're going to continue to posture the way they're posturing. Are they breaking the law? That's I don't like using that terminology because it sounds like a criminal act. they're not engaging in criminal behavior, in my opinion. Could there be civil liability for them, the districts? Potentially, right? It could be, but we're just gonna have to deal with that as it comes. And I know it's frustrating, but that just goes to show you guys how important your local elected officials are. You need to elect local elected officials that comport with your beliefs, and that's the most important way to deal with this. Let me see here. If somebody's got a question at the top and slow down at least for a bit with all of the back and forth with yourselves. I apologize. I can't keep up. Okay.
I can't keep up either.
No, I mean, you guys are just going on and on over there, and I can't I can't keep up with any of that. So, that's okay. I just won't answer any of that. Okay, there's one. Geneva's closed tomorrow. What can we do? Nothing. You guys, when a school district creates a schedule for the whole year, they build in extra days. They have to give you at least 176 in-person days under the statute. They build in extra days. They call them emergency days. I called them snow days when I was a kid because it actually snowed, kind of like it did this year a little bit, but even worse back in the 70s and 80s. So they have emergency days built in. So they're going to use some of those emergency days right now to try to deal with whatever political upheaval they're dealing with. The teacher. If you guys seen the teachers unions, and I hate to do, because again, I don't want people to think Tom says teach the teachers. It's not. If a teacher's got an issue, my help, I'm right there to help them. But the teachers unions, you guys, that bureaucratic beast, have you seen them losing their minds all day? Losing it. Illinois Teachers Federation, Illinois Education Association, these local unions just chiming in and going and going and going. And I'm sitting there going, shh, go sit down, right? You've already been told to go sit down. That's not your fight. But they wanted just that political, they need to go work with Whoopi Goldberg on The View or something. Just that nasty political nonsense. It's like, maybe it works for them, but it's just like I'm just sitting there with these unions, just again, almost like they're children, and I just want to go in the corner over there, be quiet. But yeah, they're the ones pulling these strings in the background, it seems, and it's sad. Okay, let me see if I can find a question. Again, you guys are going way too close. Or way too fast. Are that many people on here, Ryan? Oh my God. Okay, that's that. I think I caught that. Who was that? That was Gina. I've had people all day long about, Tom, we want to file a lawsuit against our school district. They're not in either of these cases. I want to file one against our school district. And I've got people, I want to be added into the existing, again, to ever be added in joinder. I talked to Mr. Zeeble, an attorney today. I got to make sure I clarify this. If it becomes necessary to join the case, Knoxville 202 just went optional. Yeehaw. 11 o'clock at night. Joinders that are in the case. You can't do joinder for a brand new school district, okay? I needed to clear that up. So joinder, if it ever becomes necessary, it's only for existing districts. But keep in mind, if you're not a plaintiff in a case on your school district, but your school district already went district-wide, your children are already not being subjected to the mandate. So, I wouldn't suggest that you consider whether it's necessary today. But for those of you that have talked about, I thought it was funny when, again, I could have had probably 100+ school district parents today. We want to file a suit, and I'm thinking, you know what, Governor, you called me a grifter. if this was always about money for me, I would say, yeah, sign them up. Let's all go. Let's go fight. It's not necessary, and I'm not going to take their money because we need to go and deal with this appeal right now. Let's get this appeal and do the best job we can, because if we win this appeal, I think it all falls apart anyway. Whether you're, your school district's not in the case, whether you're not a named plaintiff, etc. So I could not, in good faith, right now, I can't find a way to take people's money, because I think that the most important thing is to wait and see what happens with the Court of Appeals. And even if people were to file a brand new law, let's say I said, okay, we're going to file a brand new lawsuit, or we're going to have you join the existing lawsuit. I'm never going to be able to get a hearing, in my opinion, and get anything done for you before the appellate court has to rule on this issue anyway. Does that make sense, you guys? So I know you're excited and you're wanting to move, but again, if you can find an attorney that wants to take your money for those things, that's your choice. I just can't in good faith do that right now, because I still think that if I do the best job on this appeal I can do, that I can protect everybody that way. And again, I'm not going to take your money. Melissa, same thing. Will case number 2? I'll talk about that for a second, Melissa. Thank you. Will case number 2 need to be heard in court? Potentially, yes. Now, I will let you know, Melissa, that just this evening I got a motion filed by the Attorney General's office on behalf of the governor and his people, asking for a substitution of judge from Judge Grishow. They asked for a substitution of judge. So I'll have to take a live and read it yet, but I got it, and I kind of chuckled a little bit, and I was like, okay, you're trying to get a substitution, so I'll take a look at it. But, we're going to ask for a hearing, Melissa. But again, my instinct tells me that the court may not set those until the appellate court case is heard. And depending on how that appellate court case comes out, it could be controlling for parent case number 2 as well, Melissa. So I'll be in touch. I'll send you guys an email. I thought it was funny to let you know we got a substitution of judge request. They don't want Judge Grishow anymore. Governor Pritzker doesn't. One of my teachers from CPS asked me the question, and I've looked at it. And I'll send you guys an email directly. I don't want to talk about that too much because that's specific as to your guys' situation. But I will say in general, you guys, if you are in a union, the teachers union, and your union bargains with your school district, negotiates terms of employment that include you agreeing to submit to certain, like you said, you submit to drug tests, you submit to other types of things, to submit to wearing a mask or to submit to vaccination or testing. If you collectively bargain for those, and you may be bound by that. You may have consented to those things through your collective bargaining process. It's possible you would need to leave the union. You may be for some very important. Teach for certain terms. A school district can't say, well, we've negotiated with the teachers, so the students are bound by it. That doesn't even make any sense. I'm going to have to argue that issue here real soon. But yeah, for teachers, when you're part of a collective bargaining agreement, you need to be careful, because your brothers and sisters could bind you to terms and conditions you don't agree with. And, that's the good, bad, and the ugly of the unions. You may have to leave it if you don't agree to some of that, okay? But I'll email you guys about that specifically. Higher education institutions. Again, guys, this ruling has directly nothing to do with that. I've answered that question over and over. I do know that some private or public institutions of higher learning are looking at her ruling, because a lot of, guys, most of these school districts, public, private, K through 12, secondary, all of them that have done all of these things have done it through fear. There may be a few outliers, maybe the Chicago Public School District, maybe, that thinks that it was a good idea. I don't know. I think overwhelming most of these public body levels were scared. And so now, if they're not going to be scared and they've got a little courage, you may have some higher education is looking at this on their own, but they're certainly not out of any of these cases. Let me see here. I think that's about it. Again, guys, I don't have any legal advice for you how to approach the Archdiocese of Chicago. Right now you're in a political conversation with them, and which is different for the Archdiocese of Springfield and of Rockford and of Belleville. You're in the middle of a political quagmire there. You can't go citing all these laws I'm talking to you about to a private institution like that, because your child has a right to a public education. A public education. They don't have a right to an education at the Archdiocese. They don't have one. Okay? Now, there's some limits to that, maybe, of what they can do and can't do. But a lot of this legal analysis that we're dealing with in the case we're dealing with here, most of that doesn't apply to the Archdiocese. So, there's a lot of benefits to sending your kids to a private school. But, sometimes you can't go and cry you're not following the law when you're at a private school, because your ability to use the law in your behalf becomes a lot less significant when you're dealing with a private institution versus a public body that's governed by statute. There's a big difference, you guys. Ben, I'm not going to get Ben. Phyllis asked the question, well, what about if the appellate court upholds Judge Grishow's decision, but you've got school districts that are continuing to require masking on children, et cetera? Is there any recourse? There could be, there could be a civil rights claim that you could bring against them. It's called a 1983 action in the federal courts. There may be lawyers out there that want to take those cases on. You go to them and say your school district knowingly violated your children's due process rights under the law. And if that case has merit, and I think it does, it's worth having a conversation. You may find a lot of attorneys will take those cases because they're entitled to attorney's fees from the school district if they win that case on your behalf. But that's pretty premature at this point. But if this case gets upheld at the appellate level, Judge Grishow's ruling continues now, or even if it comes back with some issue we got to address and eventually is still ultimately upheld, I think that's a big risk for school districts that could potentially subject them to some concerns. And I believe that's probably what a lot of the lawyers have been telling them, which is why you're seeing an overwhelming majority of these districts go mask optional, because of that concern that I just kind of laid out to you very superficially. Okay. Nikki says, what happens if the appeal is granted? That question is so pervasive because it would depend upon what the issue appellate court has. They could have some minor procedural issue that they might have a concern with. They may say her analysis is sound, but they believe this temporary thing. It really depends on what they would say. So if they were to grant the governor an appellate relief, what concerns we might have for that as parents and in my clients as parents really depends upon what the appellate court says. So don't get all flustered about that. Let's get their ruling. And if they have some problems with it, we'll talk about those and we'll go through them. But remember what I said when I started. If the appellate court grants the relief of the governor and it comes back to Judge Grishow, that is dealing with the first part of the component that I gave you with my analysis with children and their father is like, for me, if the court sends it back, that's only saying, well, we got this rule. Because as of right now, the Judge Grishow says all the rules are gone. If it comes back and they say, well, for now, temporarily, we still got this rule, you still got the conversation of how are you going to enforce it? That's the conversation that the school districts need to be having now, and they should have been having as of August of last year. You guys have to understand that. How are they going to enforce it? The rule can still be there, just like Dad says to my son, Tommy, you got to be home at midnight. Okay, Dad. He comes home at midnight because I gave him a rule. Eventually he says, okay, Dad, but I'm not coming home at midnight. What are you going to do? I'm not going to do anything, Tom, because I can't. You're a grown man. Oh, okay. I might still come home at midnight. I might be home at 3 a.m. Okay, buddy. Thank you. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. If the school districts say, well, okay, Governor, you got this rule. How are you going to enforce it? We'll send you a probation letter from ISB. Yeah, go ahead. A year from now, we'll still be fighting about it, and COVID will be over. Okay? Because even if your school district stays mask optional, and write this part down, if they stay mask optional, under whatever set of facts, and let's say there is no temporary restraining order, take the temporary restraining order out of the question, hypothetically. They stay mask optional. There's 172 of them, for God's sakes. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Or is little old ISB going to prosecute 172 school districts and try to give them a probation letter? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Let me say that again. Take the restraining order out of the conversation. Judge Grishow's restraint. Act like it's not there. Just for this conversation. Your school districts, 170 some of them, mask optional right now. They say, okay, we're going to stay mask optional. What are they going to do? Is ISB going to send a probation letter to them? You have been found to not be in compliance with the governor's executive order. So we believe that that's a violation of section 1.20B2 of Title 23 of the Illinois Administrative Code, and of such you need to remediate. Okay, you got the letter. We disagree. The weeks go by, the months go by, and you're still fighting with them. Your lawyers are fighting with them about that, okay? COVID's going to be over before there's ever any issue. Either COVID's over or the election's coming, which means COVID's over, while your school districts are still fighting with ISB about what are you going to do to us because we're mask optional. You with me on that, you guys? That is extreme. And that's just you defending your rights. That's not being, disrespectful to anybody. That's not being, confrontational. That's you standing up and saying through your school districts, we've got a fair question and we're going to raise it. Just like Vandalia did, just like Parkview Christian Academy did, just like Hudsonville did, just like Families of Faith did, just like Beecher City did, just like Cowden Herrick, just like Red Hill. They're all doing what I'm talking to you guys about right now. Morton now is a new one, along with Eureka and a few other ones. There's 10 or 15 of them right now that are doing what I just said to you. They're standing up and saying, you know what, I don't think you can do this, ISB. If your school district continues with that, you're good. Okay? You're good. Okay. What am I? Who has that? I'm not going to say your name. I'm sorry, but somebody I believe just said, "What about the student cases where the students are going to be allowed to not wear a mask, but the teachers are?" Okay, the teachers aren't parties to the student case, right? Your school districts can do all kinds of silly stuff, and the law is not going to help them if they didn't do it. So if you have a school district where the students and their parents brought a case and they have now been successful in some fashion, and your school district said, we're not going to make any student wear a mask, but your teachers are not involved in any lawsuit against the school district, so they say you're still going to wear a mask, with all due respect, that's the price for the teachers not standing up for themselves. I got tens of thousands of parents on behalf of their children. Now that the list has grown, again, when we filed this case with 711 parents, it's because I couldn't type any faster. There's tens of thousands. You know how many teachers I had willing to stand up? About 80. About 80. So I really have a hard time right now for teachers, again, no disrespect, I love all of you, to say, oh, what about us now? Why didn't you sue on your behalf? I'm sorry, guys, I got to give a little tough love. Why didn't you? The teachers that I represented have got some relief for themselves. You could have done the same thing. So because your kids are all going to be going maskless is because they stood up for themselves, and for you, for your own good reasons in your district, you didn't choose to do it. That's the answer, ma'am. I apologize. That's the truth. I can't keep up, guys. The appellate court timing. Okay, that's a good question. I suspect the governor will file his appeal documents tomorrow. That means that starting tomorrow, I've then got 2 days to file mine. So I'll get mine on file by end of business on Wednesday. Okay. Once I get mine filed, then the appellate court has at least 5 days. They could take more time. It's the appellate court. At least 5 days. So I suspect that sometime about middle of week after next. So I don't know. Let's call it the 17th of February. I suspect we would likely have some kind of resolution from the appellate court. Could they take a little more time because it's a big issue? They could if they want to. It's their decision. But I suspect the 17th through the 20th is when we'll see an answer from them. Okay? That was an easy question. Can you help us that we have kids at school who should be able to go to school unmasked because they were a part of the lawsuit and the school is not following the ruling? And that comes from Laura L. Livingston. What school district are you talking about, Laura? Where you're saying that, can you help us that have kids at schools who should be able to go because they were a part of the lawsuit? The school district was a part of the lawsuit, or your kids directly were a part? Can you answer that question, Laura, please? And see your answer. You talking about Macomb, you said? Let me look. I've got the letter from Macomb. Here, I'm going to pull it up. I hope that didn't shut off my camera. Hold on a second. I've got the letter from him there real quick. Oh, my God. I looked in my email. I shouldn't have done that. Okay. Hold on. I got it here. I'm reading something from Macomb right here that says, and this is from, let me see here. Now I think that might be, make sure I got the right one. Hold on, let me find the letter that came from there. Okay. Lawyer Skinner's named in the lawsuit. I want to see the letter that was sent. I may have to answer this because I thought I saw. Yeah, this is one that Candace, did you send this to me? We finished, and they're saying here, our guidelines will remain in effect. It says the exception will be the families named in the lawsuit. So what I just read from this, and that would be from, Miss Isaacson from the Macomb Junior High School says that the exception are the children named in the lawsuit. So I don't see that as them saying that children are named in the lawsuit have to wear a mask. I don't see that in there. So. Kristen, it says, what about Carrie? They're part of the lawsuit, but saying it'll only apply to kids in the lawsuit, because that's what the judge said for now, is it only applies to the kids in the lawsuit. Almost every school district, besides a handful, have said, nonetheless, it's going to apply district-wide. But there's a few school districts that are going to choose to try to play that hardball and only apply to the kids in the district. There's nothing to be done about that right now. Not in the next 2 weeks until the appellate court rules. Same thing with U46 that somebody, Deanna just said. I've read the U46 information, and it says in there that does apply to they're going to continue masking, but not for the kids in the lawsuit. So, if you're listening to this and you have a child in one of the 146 districts named as a plaintiff, and you have something that you think says that your child still has to wear a mask, I need to see it, because the only one that I know for certain right now that's taking that position is the Chicago Public School District, and I'll deal with that. But I don't know of any of the other ones, U46. I just read what they'd sent, and I didn't read it that way. It says exception is the kids in the district. Guys, why are you talking about surety bond claims right now? I mean, that I've tried to tell you, you got to stay on point. You could file a surety bond issue right now, and 6 months from now, you'll still be dealing with the surety bond claim, and this whole thing's going to be over. You've got a window of about a month or 2 months, and this whole issue is going to be over anyway. The governor's going to roll it out of here. He just wants to roll it out based on his own terms, and he doesn't want a court doing it to him. You guys can't talk about solutions that are going to drag on for months and years. This thing will be over. Please, you got to stay on point. No, you can't hold board members personally liable for exceeding their authority. There's very rare circumstances. They're making policy decisions that you disagree with, and they have exceeded their authority. Something, guys, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. So you're not going to take their house away from them because they made a decision that they exceeded their authority. There are certain circumstances where personal liability may attach to public officials. It's very complicated, and none of these circumstances that I've seen so far rise to that level. These are political issues. You need to unelect them. Where is that? Is that Jim? Jim Strickland. Who says it will be over? Anybody want to bet Blanton's is one of my favorite. A bottle on this will be over in the next couple of months, 2 or 3 months. You will not. And again, I'll bet that bottle of Blanton's if somebody wants it. There is no set of facts in my mind and in my humble opinion that we roll into the summer, into the next school year, dealing with mask and exclusion policies. Guys, the election's coming in November. It's not going to happen. This is going to end. If you guys heard, I told you yesterday, you heard the governor changing his tone and the way he talks about this. He's already transitioning you out of it. He's just going to transition you out of it. He wants to transition you out of it on his terms and not on your terms and not on the court's terms, because he wants to win his election back. And okay, I'm not going to begrudge him for that. This is going to go away. It's going to go away real soon. Again, it's how and in what manner, but it's going to go away. In my opinion, you can disagree with me. That's okay. I devil dog dare the governor to roll into August of 2022, starting the 22-23 school year with a mask policy in place. I triple dog dare him. Give it a shot. You guys there's new people joining in with redundant questions. I'm not going to ask them or answer them. Okay. I think that's it, Ryan, unless you see a few. I mean, the people are going on about ESSER funds and stuff now. Already talked about the mask on the buses, Jolanta. Okay. Ryan, I think it's about 50 minutes. That's about it. So you guys have a good evening. I think that's answered pretty much everything that we need to answer. But encourage your school districts to just stay mask optional. This all go away if they'll just stand up. It'll go away like that, I promise you.